What's up, guys? Welcome to the first ever episode 33 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. I don't know how I keep fucking this up. 33 sounds wrong. That sounds like a lot of episodes.
It's because you're breaking your brain by going the first ever.
No, I got that part
33.
down. That's easy. That's really easy.
Let me try it. Can I try it?
Yeah.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode. Nope. See, I can't do it either.
God damn
First
it,
ever
Nick.
episode of Kevin eating a scone off of a desk.
As
which
always,
is something that I'm
Tim
watching
Gettys.
right now.
I'm joined by one half of the coolest dudes in video games, Colin Moriarty.
It's your boy.
And Nick.
Jesus.
Nick Scarpino.
You know,
And because we have no choice,
you
Nick
literally
Scarpino.
have plenty of choices. You don't need to include me on this show.
I wanted you to be here.
No, I respect that, but also I'm not going to get butthurt if you guys want to actually bring in someone who knows about games, because I just end up sitting here talking shit about Kevin.
That's all you do. It adds a nice little spice to this show.
I want everyone to know that before we started this show, Kevin was legitimately eating a freshly baked chocolate chip scone off of the desk that holds the soundboard. He didn't there was no paper towels, and he didn't want to dirty a plate. Shut, Kevin, I'm talking. He didn't want to dirty a plate, so he put the scone directly on the desk. Now, Colin didn't see that, and I had two choices at this point. I could have easily just let it go, but I brought it to Colin's attention, and now Colin is fixated on it. So we made Kevin go get a plate.
Colin wasn't fixated on it. You were fixated on it.
Yeah, Colin really had nothing to do except he looked here, said one sentence of disapproval, and then Nick just didn't stop talking about
I
it.
was like, oh, absolutely. And then you were just
No,
like,
you don't understand Colin.
what's
See,
going on?
you're not as close to Colin as I am. That bothered him. And it was starting to wear on his psyche. And had you not gotten it, he's still worried about it. He's going to probably spray that down when we leave so the ants don't get to it.
we just got an ant problem. It's just the nature. We live in a clean apartment, but they just find a way.
They come marching in one by one.
Yeah, exactly.
Hurrah.
That's right.
What,
That's right.
what was the line from Jurassic Park? Nature finds a way. Was that what it was?
That was. Yeah, that was good.
Nature finds a way.
Yeah. God damn.
They're like, great, the good take there.
Cut.
Cut.
We got it. Cut.
Oh,
Cut.
man. All right. So you guys are probably wondering why the other half of the coolest dudes in video games, Greg Miller, is not here. And he's not because we're in San Francisco. He's in L.A. doing what's called the Metal Gear Solid 5 boot camp. I'm seeing it referred to on the internet.
Yeah, that's what makes you happy.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what they're calling it. But essentially, it's just the Metal Gear Solid 5 review extravaganza thing where they get all the different outlets to go down and play the game.
They got a lot of
before it comes
outlets,
out.
a lot of media influencers, a lot of just fun. Like, what's cool is I think they that's okay. I don't know what you do. I see. The thing is, your attention got drawn to Kevin. Now I want to make fun of Kevin again. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. Just like I saw Kevin playing with one of my microfiber cloths, and I don't take kindly to that.
Oh, he was gonna clean the crumbs up with it.
You were, weren't you? And that was the thing.
It's in this space. I gotta clean it later.
All right.
Good lord. Okay, so Greg.
So they invited a good mix of media outlets and then influencers and just fans, like big fans from blogs and things like that are just huge Metal Gear fans.
to play a lot of the games. So what Greg's doing is he's going to be playing pretty much a week's worth of Metal Gear Solid 5.
Yeah.
And we are doing an insane thing like we've never done before where he's going to be doing a Let's Play every day of this game for 2 weeks, including weekends. So it's like there's this whole crazy schedule. Is that not right? I think it is.
It's accurate, probably.
Yeah.
Schedule.
We're probably generating
Either-
more
the word
here,
you're
right?
looking for.
Either way, I'm pretty sure like we're getting at least 10. Right? There's a lot of Let's Plays.
There's a lot of
all right?
Let's Plays going
Lots of damn Let's Plays are
Schedule.
happening. Lots of Metal Gear content. I can guarantee you at least 10 Metal Gear contents.
Yeah, I mean,
overall.
also, no spoilers. Once the game comes out, Greg will be probably exclusively streaming Metal Gear until we yank him off of his PS4 and make him go to bed or force feed him something. To
Greg
eat.
just can't play a game, so of course he's gonna be streaming it until the cows come home.
Yeah, there'll
but at that
probably
point
be a
the game,
meet and greet involved.
yeah,
somehow
he'll have a meet and greet during the
in Afghanistan in the game. It's like he'll have everyone come and meet him in Mother Base.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's really cool. I'm really excited for it because obviously I'm really excited for this game. I wish I was there with him right now. Instead, I'm here watching Portillo sniff around. For
Portillo,
something. I'm not sure what he's doing.
He's sniffing the crumbs that were no doubt dropped by cookies that came off of Kevin's shirt. Am I correct?
Yeah, Kevin's shirt's pretty crummy. I'll tell you that much.
Would you take
Portillo.
offense if I called you the Cookie Monster from now on? It's a cool name.
No, it would not.
Cool.
But cookie like an internet cookie. You know what I mean? Where like
No,
you're like if I looked through your cookies,
that's
I'd be
where my mind
horrified. Like you're a monster.
So this episode is sponsored by Volume, a
Nice.
stealth game coming out. Oh, it's already out.
It's out.
August 18th. So it's on PS4. It's coming soon to Vita.
Yeah, in the coming weeks to Vita, according
Yeah.
to Mike Bithell.
We got PC and Mac. From the creator of Thomas Was Alone, Mike Bithell, friend of the show. Volume combines a core story starring Andy Serkis and Danny Wallace with an editor that lets you make and play content as part of a community of stealth game fans. For more information, follow @VolumeGame on Twitter. And once again, you tweet @VolumeGame. Tell them that Tim Gettys sent you. I'm liking this. I don't know if you guys see this. You probably don't because I'm the one tagged in it. There's a lot of people doing this.
Good.
And I appreciate it.
You could also tweet at Mike Bethel and just tell him that Nick Scarpino at Nick_Scarpino says what's up.
Yeah, do
Just
whatever
what's
you want
up.
because Mike Bithell is the homie, and Volume looks legitimately awesome.
getting
Greg
great
did
scores.
a
Mike's a
Let's
great
Play
guy,
on it.
too.
You can go check out the Let's
Yeah.
Play we did on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. I'm waiting for Vita because I want to get
Me
on
too.
that. But man, it looks
too.
fun.
Yeah,
That's
met
my
Mike,
intention.
Met Mike a couple times. Met him at GDC and then at E3. He's a nice guy.
So-
perverted mind though. Just
Are we talking about you?
wait, which one are we talking about?
I think we're talking about you.
Oh yeah, then definitely yeah. Perverted mind.
So the first topic of the day is what games are we most excited about? Which is a nice little segue because I'm pretty excited about Volume on Vita.
Yeah,
because
Volume's
I've been
very
waiting for a Vita experience for all my damn plane flights
Mm-hmm.
to all these conventions and all the crazy things we're doing. We got a lot coming up. What's the next thing? We got PAX.
We got PAX.
So we're gonna
coming
be
up
in
next
Seattle
week.
for PAX Prime. Well, there'll be a meet and greet there.
There will be meet and greet there.
Yeah.
We'll be having it. I don't think we've disclosed the location of it just yet.
Okay, but there
But we'll
will be a
figure
meet
that
and
out.
greet.
We'll just follow us on Twitter. We'll figure that out. There will be
You
a meet
won't
and
need a
greet.
PAX badge for
We
that.
got a ton of everyone's in a ton of panels. Like Colin's in like 9 panels, aren't you? How many panels are you doing?
Like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I'm hosting one, but we can't talk about it yet. We'll do ours. I'm doing a couple with GameSpot. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll be doing quite a few panels.
Yeah, it's
It'll
gonna
be fun. And then directly after that, we have the GameStop Expo.
Right, in
We're
Las
going to
Vegas,
that.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Now we'll be there, I believe, on the 1st and 2nd of September. The show, I believe, is the 2nd of September, if I'm getting my days right. It's the Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we'll be live streaming all day, hosting their live stream. Ton of games, ton of fun content. We're also going to do a Gamescast from the show floor. So if you have the fortune of attending that event, you can come see us live, heckle us, do whatever you want to do. It's a standard garbage truck.
I'm excited for that. That the topic for that Gamescast is just going to be one topic for the whole show.
Right.
It's going to be
Favorite GameStop memories.
like GameStop memories
Yeah.
and stuff. And
Yeah.
like, oh man, I can't wait.
There's
to
a
talk
lot. I
about
have a lot of great ones too, especially from IGN because there were so many different eras of visiting the GameStop.
Yeah,
We'll
your,
save
your
that for the
Brennan
show.
story about Metal Gear Solid 4 might be my favorite one.
Oh, okay.
on this,
We'll-
but
we'll
save
get to
that
that.
for,
We'll get
for
to
that.
that.
But that'll be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a lot of that stuff coming up, and then later in September we have TwitchCon, which is here. So I guess I don't even.
That one I'm really excited about too. I'm excited
Yeah.
about. I'm actually really excited about the next like 3 events we get to go to.
Yeah,
What is going on down
I
there?
don't even know. There's some knocking knocks going on.
No, I want the window open.
It's fine. It's
Who's-
probably not coming.
Who is it? Where's the knocking coming from?
Someone's hammering something in upstairs. Or...
Garage.
I forgot to do the whole rigmarole because Nick's here.
Yeah.
And, we just talk. And
I'm
then Kevin
sorry. I
distracts me. No,
apologize.
it's fine. It doesn't matter. But this is the Kind of Funny Games cast. It's pretty much the Game Over Greggy show, but we talk about video games. It's 4 topics and all that stuff. But if you want the whole show early, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. There's a whole bunch of different tiers to get the show early. And for only $1 a month, you get an extra episode of the show. Exclusive.
Exclusive.
So you should check that out. We do a lot of fun stuff. The last one was me, Nick, and Greg in a car
That was a
talking
good
about road
episode.
trip gaming.
Yeah.
So that was fun. So you
Yeah.
should definitely go check that stuff out. And also, we have the Kind of Funny forums. You should go to there, leave topics for the show, and we will get to them eventually.
No, we'll get to them.
Yeah. So going back to it, what games are we excited for? Because I already talked about Volume. Excited for that one. What else?
I'm excited for Metal Gear. I'm very excited for this, and this will be my first foray, not counting Ground Zeroes, into an actual Metal Gear title. Now, some might think that's blasphemy because I should probably go back and play some of the other titles. But again, I sat down with Greg at dinner. We were at a not a PF Chang's, BJ's, getting he got some sort of pizza.
Pizookie?
No, we didn't get a Pizookie. It was too much food. But he got a buffalo chicken pizza. I got an ahi salad, and then I proceeded to eat half of his buffalo chicken pizza, like I do sometimes. Sometimes I'll order something really healthy, and I'll eat all your French fries.
Yeah.
Same thing. And I'm like, look, I don't have time to go back and play all the other Metal Gears. I'm like, where should I start here? And Greg says, I'm like, can you bring me up to speed on what's going on with the story? Now, I've asked that question before, and every time I ask it, it's a hilarious answer because the answer goes on way too long, and I'm nowhere closer to any clarity on the events of the storyline that I was an hour before when I asked it. But Greg kind of brought me up to speed, and I'm like, this is such a weird and wacky story that I think I'm just gonna have to jump in, honestly.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't see myself going back and playing Guns of the Patriot. I don't see myself going back and trying to find any of the other titles like 1 through 3, I guess, that were, I don't know that I could do it. I can't do it.
Yeah, I think you'll be okay. I mean, it's obviously these games have been designed to really benefit people that have played through all of them. And there's a lot of the little details and stuff that you pick up on. You're like, oh my God, that's cool. A lot of fan service, especially the last couple games have been very fan service heavy.
Right.
But it's like, you don't need to know any of that stuff. And a lot of the games, the first time you play through them, you don't know what the hell's going on anyways.
Right.
It's not until you really kind of reflect on it and read about it and think about it and talk to other people.
Right,
You have those moments where you're like, oh, that's what was going on. Or else you're like, I don't fucking know.
See, I think the impact of this one will, of course, be lessened by the fact that I don't have the wealth of knowledge that you guys do for the Metal Gear series. But it's undeniably a cool game. And I think what I'm drawn to, aside from the sort of very Japanese manner of storytelling, and which I'm warming up to more and more. Because it's definitely not Western, right? It's definitely not your Hollywood style of like, I'm going to give you a really straight up story where we feel the need to sort of set up characters and events before they happen so that when the payoff happens, boom, you get it, right? With Metal Gear, what I've noticed is that they'll just throw things at you and there'll be characters that you haven't seen maybe even in like 10 years. No setup, no reason why they're there. They're just there. And the excitement comes from the fact that you're being reintroduced into your world. Not necessarily like a Hollywood film where you get a little inkling of that character the first act, and then the second act, boom, that's when they show up, and then they got to fight. They'll just kind of throw stuff at you, and that it's just a different mentality. And so I get past that, but it's got an undeniably cool sense of style to it. I mean, there is nothing quite as cool as Snake, right? Mm-hmm. Or Big Boss, or whichever the one you play in this game.
Yeah, you're Big Boss.
I don't really know. And I want to, and there's a lot to this game, right? As they progress, I mean, you've seen all the footage we've seen so far. The game is beautiful looking. It's got a really deep system of combat. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
that's a game I'm looking forward to. I'm also looking forward to purchasing my first Vita, which will happen.
Your first Vita, as if there will be another in the future.
Well, I'm sure that Sony will make another handheld because the Vita was so successful that how can they not? I'm surprised they haven't made one already, right, Colin?
Yeah, it's shocking. My question about this hammering noise, and I don't know if this is I don't know if this is coming
just
through.
Trying to pretend it's not happening.
I just don't know if this is coming through. What could you possibly be hammering consistently with just?
I think he can just hear us, and he's like, "Fuck him, I'm gonna just."
Where is it come? Where is the? Shut the window. I want to see if the window makes a difference.
No.
Where is this coming from?
It's like right there. It's on the other side of the wall. Something's in the wall.
Damn it. Well, this is San Francisco, so the walls are like 2 inches apart from the neighbors. So it could be that the guy next door is putting up 30 frames.
But he just isn't
there's
stopping.
No stopping. If he's putting up the frames, it's just like I want to see this because he's just going down the line, hammering. Someone's like spotting him, putting nail after nail after nail. This is a fucking. He might be ending. No, I mean, you still have to.
This is bizarre.
All right, we get it. We get it. We get it.
All right. So, this is probably the most exciting time of the year so far for me with video games, where I haven't really cared about any of the games coming out this year. When, damn, I'm totally blanking on the name. The parkour zombie game.
Oh, Dying Light.
Dying Light. That came out, no real interest in it. I had a PS4, but I was like,
"Oh, it's too bad. You should go back and play at least a few hours of it. It's a really cool game."
No, I'm sure it's cool, but it's just not something that like grabs me. Where I'm like, I'm not gonna stop making videos and like planning stuff and doing all the things I like to play that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's certain games that I'm like, everything stops because I'm playing this. And then we get to Batman. I just never got into the other games, so I'm like, it's not really something that grabs me like that. Metal Gear, I knew was gonna be the first huge game that I need to jump into. The last month, I just haven't been able to wait. It's like I'm constantly watching trailers and stuff. Just today, they released a trailer that was like a legacy trailer that went through the 28 years or whatever the hell, and like PlayStation, like the legacy on PlayStation specifically. And I'm like, good lord, I have so much chills from this. Like, this is going to be awesome. And this hammer is bothering me so much. I know, I'm really trying to.
So you're legitimately going to sit down. How many hours do you think you'll play this game? You think you're going to beat it?
I'm going to beat the game. I will beat Metal Gear 5 for sure. But I don't know when I'm going to. And I've been stressing out a lot about this.
Don't stress. No, I'm just saying don't stress because, it's Actually, I have no idea how long the game is. I'm not
Well,
even sure
so
if I'm allowed to
what
tell
I'm-
those
Sure it's very
details.
long.
What I'm
But I'm
stressed
sure
out
it's pretty
about.
long.
I mean, well, that's the thing is like I don't really care too much about all the side missions and all the like. Peace Walker turned me off because of all the base building and all the like the gathering your troops and all that stuff. I don't want that. Like, and it sounds optional, and I think it was in Peace Walker as well. Like, I just want to do the story missions,
Sure.
get through. And the other Metal Gear games were never that long, like 15 hours max, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's about right. You can get through them a little quicker. You can get through them a little slower.
I'm saying
But yeah,
max.
yeah,
like,
I'd say 15 hours is the good mean.
if you
for
do
all of them.
some of the side things and just kind of like leisurely go through, because I'm not good at games, but 8 to 15 hours per game. Some like I think MGS1's a little shorter than that, but
I would. You know what? It's sad we can't do this because it would just take up way too much bandwidth. I would love to capture just both of our gameplay sessions for this. Just see the complete and total opposite
Buffoonery
ends of the spectrum
of what
of
we
how
do.
either both of us play. Because I know what's going to inevitably happen is I'm going to throw the ranking idea, the idea of getting an S rank on every mission, out the window after the first 3 tries in the first mission, and I am just going to try to massacre every single person on every land, and that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get a reputation for being a psychopath within the Metal Gear community, and I don't care.
that's good. Yeah, I mean, see,
Someone's
I don't
gotta be
care
the
about the
psychopath.
rankings at all. Like to me, I'm in it for the story. I'm in it to
Sure.
play through it, and the gameplay is fun to me.
Yeah.
I don't really care about doing all the extra stuff. But what I'm stressed about is this isn't the only game I want to play that's happening right now. But in addition to Metal Gear, another thing that I need to time how I'm going to play is you were telling me that I need to look into Until Dawn.
Yep.
Because I remember when they showed it at PSX. And it had, what's her name, Hayden Panettiere or
Yeah.
whatever. And it looked cool. It looked like a fun little diversion of just like teen horror stuff. But I've kind of been writing it off as just like something that doesn't really interest me. And I'm not going to look into it, especially when Metal Gear is coming out.
Right.
So like 2 weeks after, a week after. But then there was that new trailer that came out that was like more of the, not the launch trailer, but like the actual... The trailer that shows off the game.
Yeah, and choices can be made. They released a whole thing where it's like the choices can be made within the trailer, I think, and stuff like that, which is cool. Yeah, the timing's really weird because a lot of people are really skeptical about Until Dawn, and I understand why that is because the game was rebooted. The game's been in development for a very long time. I'm surprised actually that Sony has let Supermassive work on this game. I saw this game for the first time, I think, in 2011, and
Damn.
in New York Comic Con. I think it was 2011. And at the time that I saw it, it was running on PS3 and it used PlayStation Move. And the game is totally been rebuilt and reworked now. And actually, a PlayStation experience, one of the coolest things in December when we were there, one of the coolest moments was when Supermassive came on stage and showed it, and the crowd was freaking the fuck out, like making the choices for them as you go.
Oh, yeah, that was cool.
The timing is weird. I mean, I understand why people are skeptical of Until Dawn based on its late August timing, the fact that 2 big games are coming out the next week, and Metal Gear and Mad Max. So I think it is going to get buried a little bit, no pun intended. But yeah, it's a game absolutely worth looking into.
And well, so for me, looking at it, like watching this trailer, because I haven't seen anything about the game since PSX. And it really looks like a 90s teen horror movie. And I'm just like, yeah, I want to play that. I have to play that.
It's like playing
now.
Scream.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And I'm like, that
love
looks
that.
fucking awesome.
Nice,
So
yeah.
I want to definitely set aside some time to play that. Hopefully before I get to Metal Gear. I just don't know how it's going to work with our travel thing. But then Mario Maker. Mario
Oh,
motherfucking
yeah.
Maker.
And we have Mario Maker, which is even
that makes it so hard. It's like, we literally have it to play before it comes out, and it comes out officially September 11th.
the
It's
11th
like-
of September.
Yeah, the 11th of September.
I love how they just keep saying that. Like, why don't you just move the date? All right, anyway, good.
And man, that game is I'm gonna sink some hours into that. You know, I can't wait to play just what's in it already, like the levels that they made, the 100 levels or whatever, plus all the downloaded levels from different people making it and making our own levels. And like, I want to think of something for us to do where we make levels for each other and play them and all that stuff.
I mean, the sad thing is with me, my immediate thought is it's going to go to some sort of perverted land.
Yeah,
or
that'd
just
be good.
make a level that's just the
World-
inside of a man's
World 5, Dickland.
yeah
World 6,
genitalia.
Anal
Bigger
Land.
dick,
Big
giant dick land.
Just they
Ice
call
dick
they call
land.
this land the mushroom tip.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about
Jesus, Kevin.
I'm really excited about Mario Maker as well. We talked about it a little bit on Colin and Greg Live, but the unlocking system in the game is absolutely atrocious and stupid. But other than that, I still can't get over how bad.
But what is the unlocking?
You have to play the
system?
game over a period of 9 days to
Okay.
unlock everything.
Why?
And it doesn't matter if you've sunk in like 5 or 10 minutes or 10 hours in one day, you unlock the same amount of stuff.
So it's like there's all the tools and different assets
Sure.
you can use to create the levels, and they didn't want to overwhelm players in the beginning by putting everything there. And I mean, but it's like,
Why? Because players are stupid. Like,
yeah, I mean, well, yeah, it's like the difference between MS Paint and Photoshop. You know, like
Sure.
just throwing Photoshop at someone and being like, figure it out. There's
isn't that
a
what?
million
But isn't
different
that what a
things.
tutorial is for? Like, couldn't they just have put all the things in there and then just had like one tutorial level? It's like, here's how you use
Yeah,
all
but I
these
mean,
things.
that's the difference between a tutorial for Mario or for MS Paint and a tutorial for Photoshop. It's like that's hella shit.
Sure.
This way, it's like if you play little by little, you can kind of familiarize yourself with the different things. And I don't know if there's tutorials, but if there is, it's little chunks at a time. Now, I was like, everyone's flipping out about it. I'm like, oh, I don't think it's that bad. Like, I think it's a good idea that they're, you know, introducing these things so people actually understand what all the different pieces are. And I was talking to Colin about it yesterday, and he totally won me over. This is stupid and ridiculous. Why is it a daily timed based thing? So the way they're unlocking it is you have to more's unlocked each day for 9 days.
And you have to play that day. It's not just 9 days, so you don't just put it in and then not wait 9 days.
See, that's ridiculous though, because that's not how people learn. Like, you can't do that.
No,
you have to be able to learn at your own pace, and that's why having a tutorial system for a game like that. I mean, you're basically learning you're learning a game design program. And in doing that, there's got to be a better way to do it.
No,
Like,
it's just that my
I learned After Effects by watching tutorial after tutorial, step by step, and being able to do those at my own speed. What happens if you get to the end of the first day and you're ready for another one? You can't
Yeah.
get it.
Well, that's the point. Is that it's just I have no problem with them locking everything if they want to lock everything. I'm just saying it should be based on time played, not days. So like if you play 10 hours in one day, you still unlock the same amount of content the next day that a person who played for 1 minute, or it's not 1 minute, but 5 minutes or half an hour. Or whatever played. It's
or
just,
even more of a
it's
classic.
it's nonsense.
Like a classic game design where it's like make 3 levels and it'll unlock more.
Yeah, that's what I'm
stuff,
saying. It
you
should
know
be
what I mean?
contingent on.
Well,
It should be
that's what I'm-
contingent
yeah.
on either hours played or more likely your accomplishments in the game. I
Yeah.
have no problem with them locking anything. I'm just saying that based on days is stupid. But I too am really excited about Mario Maker. I'd be loath not to say that I'm excited about Mad Max. I think that game looks really awesome. Avalanche is a great studio. Super interested to see that game, and I feel like it's flown under the radar because of Metal Gear and the fact that it comes out the same day. I feel bad for them. They probably should have moved it or pushed it up if they could, but they didn't. So I think that game looks good. Fallout 4 is probably my most anticipated AAA game. Really stoked to play Fallout 4.
I'm
and
not
sink some
excited
time
about
into it.
Fallout. Here's why I'm sad for you. Is because we'll lose you. I know that when Fallout 4 comes out, you're done.
Pretty much.
You're done.
Pretty much. Yeah. I can't.
Sorry
wait.
to interrupt you.
I can't
I
wait. No, it's fine.
apologize.
I can't wait to get down, Porto. Thank you. Goodbye. I can't wait.
Suicide dive.
So Fallout 4, I'm excited about. I'm excited. I mean, games further up. Uncharted Collection will be cool. This.
Oh my
fall.
god! And there's
Yeah,
that.
the Uncharted
But
Collection.
but there's also Uncharted 4 in the spring, which is awesome. See, I look at this particular fall and I'm not super overwhelmed. Like I look at it and I'm like, okay, you're gonna get your Call of Duty. I don't care about that. Although I'll play the campaign, I'm not gonna like sink any more than a weekend into it. You're gonna get Battlefront, which I'm not gonna play because it's multiplayer. You're gonna get just some various like Madden, some standard games that you're expecting, and then it's really just like Fallout 4 is the marquee title for me. If you own an Xbox One, obviously you're gonna want to look at Gears, which is very soon. You're gonna look at Halo 5 and Forza,
I'm interested in the Halo 5 campaign.
Tomb Raider.
And on Tomb Raider. Yeah. Damn it.
So I mean, there are games to look forward to. But actually, looking forward, I'm even more excited about 2016. Mighty Number 9 is going to come out in 2016 now. Now I've gone.
So you hope.
I'm super skeptical now about that game. Like really extremely skeptical about it because this delay is just totally dubious and fucking ridiculous. Let's not forget that this game was supposed to pretty much come out imminently, and it's being pushed back until next year so they can make the online work. I'm like, all right, that doesn't make any sense. There's something wrong with that game. So that's coming out. Obviously, we already mentioned Uncharted 4, which is super exciting. Mass Effect Andromeda. Now that we're starting to learn a little bit more about it, sounds super exciting.
What is the deal with that? When's that coming out?
Like holiday 2016.
So we'll see basically a lot of it.
Probably E3. They'll probably reveal
whatever.
everything. All will be revealed. So I mean, there's a lot, but again, in the smaller game space, I mean, I'm excited to play Banner Saga on my Vita, and like there's just a lot of smaller games as well.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of right now, as far as what I can talk about what we're playing, I'm super excited about everyone getting their hands on Mega Man Legacy Collection because it's fucking awesome. I just sat on the edge of my bed last night playing it on PS4. I have an early copy of it on PS4, and we have it on Xbox One as well. But I'm obviously playing for trophies, and I sat on my edge of my bed. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna play Mega Man 1 for a little while. Then I just beat 1, and I beat 2, and I beat 3, like just sitting there.
You're a crazy person.
You are crazy.
But that's awesome. Like that just shows how much you love those games. Like I get the same way playing the Mario games, like the old ones. Or I'm just playing through and I'm like, I boot up All Stars. And next thing I know, I'm halfway through 3. And I'm like, fuck.
Is it like looking at a painting, do you think, for you guys? Like looking at a piece of art that you're like, I just want to just continue to consume this? Because to me, I mean, I guess I have movies that are like that, and there are some. I just wouldn't think about going back and reading a book or playing a game that I've already beaten. You know, like once I'm done, I'm done. I don't know. For you guys, is it just all nostalgia where you're like, or is it just great? Is it just a great game with great replayability?
I think it's a mix. It depends on the games. Like I wouldn't go back and play everything. It's just there's certain keystones that I'm like, yeah, because usually I'm just like, I'm one and done, just over it. Like when I beat the games, but a lot of these older ones, I love them.
Yeah, they're just masterclasses on gameplay. I think they're just fun to play. Yeah. It's like putting on an old glove. It's like it's testing muscle memory you developed 25 years ago. At times, it's fun. I mean, that's why I just beat Arkham Knight finally. And
you did?
Yeah. And
what'd you think?
It's a good game. I like it. I think it's overrated, but I think it's a good game. A lot of people were talking about like it's game of the year, and it was like I'm like it's not. On a storytelling level and on a character level, it's awesome. I think it's great. On a gameplay level, I wasn't really that impressed, to be honest. I think it's fine. It's definitely not my favorite game of the year, but I'm glad I beat it. The reason I brought up Arkham Knight was not to discuss that or have a controversy about that, which was more to say that's a one and done game for me where I was like, I beat it and immediately deleted it off my system. I'm like, I'm done. Never going back.
Right.
So it's, especially with all that Riddler shit, I have no patience for that.
No, I'm not doing that.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like that more about games today. Although, like Uncharted Collection is a great example of I platinumed all of those Uncharted games, and I'm going to platinum them again. It's not even like I'm going to just sit and play them. I'm going to get the platinum trophy in those games again.
You were crazy.
So but they're awesome.
Those
games are masterpieces. You know, it's different than just playing a game to play it or a game that's fun or good. There are lots of good games, but there are fantastic games, and those are the games that you'll always go back to. I will go back to Uncharted again in 20 years, and I'm sure it'll be just as good.
Yeah. I just think it's crazy that with these games now, I feel like it's going from nothing to so much at once. Like this September is about to be insane, even if it is just a handful of games coming out right in the beginning or like late August. But like,
what do we have in
crazy,
September?
Man. Well, there's so Until Dawn is a week before September.
Okay,
and then we got
when's Metal Gear coming out?
Metal Gear September 1st. Mad Max is September 1st.
Jeez.
Mario Maker's the 11th of September, and then
Gears is in there. Forza's in there.
Yeah.
I think.
Damn.
Yeah, there are quite a few AAA games coming out.
And then right into October, we got Uncharted and we got all this other stuff. It's like, man,
it's a lot going on. It's gonna be good. I mean, that's the way it always goes. We're so again hyper sensitive to what the day-to-day happenings in the industry that we're used to it being slow, and it's just this is the normal. Like, frankly, I look at this fall and I'm like, it's busy, but I remember much busier falls than this.
Yeah.
I feel like actually Q1 and the first half of Q2 have become crazy out of nowhere the last few years, and that's kind of where a lot of games that are pushed out either because they need more time or wisely because they're going to get crushed. That's kind of that's why I'm surprised that I kind of anticipated some more delays in the fall from get away from Fallout. We haven't been seeing those yet, and I'm shocked by that because Fallout's going to squash a lot of games. Like it's just a lot of people are like, you're overestimating how good Fallout's going to sell. And so like, no, I'm not. Fallout 4 is going to sell millions and millions of copies, and it's going to do it very easily. And anything around it is going to suffer, whether it suffers a little or a lot. I mean, it remains to be seen. But I was surprised that they're sticking with that Tomb Raider release date on Xbox One and Xbox 360 on November 10th. It's the same day Fallout comes out. I'm just like, that's suicidal. Like, I don't understand like why you would do something like that. Because given the option and the $60 in your pocket, and most people don't have the time or maybe even the means to buy multiple games at the same time, you're going to buy Fallout, right? Yeah. I mean, I presume that's like a 9 out of 10 kind of.
I don't know 9
out of 10 people that are into games or would prefer Fallout. You would assume, but maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Tomb Raider has a slightly higher market share than that.
It has a great market share. I'm just saying there are games that crush everything around it, and I feel like that's strange to me. But.
Yeah. All right, guys. The second topic comes from Patreon from our boy Brandon Ferguson. To begin, I'm 16 years old and grew up with the generation of Xbox 360 and PS3 games.
Yeah.
Wow. But recently, I've been purchasing old consoles and games to play so I can experience the older retro games. So my question is, what are some old NES, SNES, N64, PS1, etc. games that I need to purchase and experience? Thanks.
I mean, this is a tough one to answer because
all.
Yeah, I mean, like you really could distill it down to like a few games on each console that you really need to play. But again, I feel like in the NES era, and even if you go back to 2600, which is another console, I think that's totally worth playing. If you want to understand like the genetics of games, then I think that's actually an essential. 2600 is an essential console to play.
Well, so that's a big question because I've been going back and forth on Twitter with some people about games that are pre-NES. Are there any that are necessary to play?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of
like
free
what?
NES games. if you want to understand where adventure games come from, there's a million different games to play. If you want to understand where RPGs and Western RPGs came from, a game like Ultima is probably worth playing.
But not so much if you want to understand where they came from, but more like these are classics that need to be played. Like these are just great video games.
Sure,
like, not a history lesson, like just great video games.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite Atari game is River Raid. I think that's a fucking classic game and super fun and super easy to understand. But it's like it's a fantastic game. Yeah, I mean, Space Invaders, Miss Pac-Man, Defender. These are all pre Atari games that or contemporary to Atari pre-NES rather that are totally awesome games to play still. I mean, like Miss Pac-Man is a fucking masterpiece. That game is awesome. Awesome game, especially if you play it in an arcade cabinet or a cocktail cabinet. I think something like Space Invaders was so popular in Japan that there was a shortage of 100 yen coins when the game was out. I mean, that's an incredible thing, and that's not so much a zeitgeist thing as much as like that's just a good formula for a game. Space Invaders is a solid game. I would even say something like Arkanoid, brick breaking games, Breakout.
Yeah.
Are awesome, and you find where a game like we were talking about recently, Peggle, like it traces its genes back to those kinds of games. So I think, are they essential to play? Actually, yes, I think that they probably are.
Okay, those are good options.
Yeah.
The Twitter conversation started with the Rare Replay that we.
I mean, none of those.
And they're
games
like, you're like Tim, you're just hating. You're setting a bad example for people. For younger gamers and saying that all old games are bad. I'm like, I've never said all old games are bad. In fact, I love old games. He's like, yeah, but nothing pre-NES. And I'm like, I'm not saying that. Yeah, Pac-Man and all that stuff, duh. Those are like classic games that are fun. The gameplay is there. But a lot of the other stuff we're playing, they simply weren't good.
No, you don't need. I mean, there's a lot of text adventures that you can play back then. I like again. It depends on if you want to have like go back and like really enjoy yourself, which is what you want to do with video games. But there's a part of it that I feel like if you really want to understand games, you got to go back and not so much enjoy yourself, but just learn the story.
Yeah.
And the beauty of games that I think is still, we talked about it. Nick and I talked about it not too long ago. Was when you compare games to film, games right now are in like the 1940s, right? Like. They're really coming into their own. This is when we got Citizen Kane and stuff like that.
Right.
And which a lot of people think something like The Last of Us might be something like a really seminal work of storytelling as opposed to like what came before, like the silent pictures and stuff like that, which is maybe what something like from the
Mario
SNES era is.
64.
Yeah, exactly. The beauty is that we're still not far enough removed from the beginning. And I'm not talking about like Tennis for Two, 1959. I'm not talking about mainframe role-playing games at universities. I'm talking about like Pong and everything after that. So like early 70s after that. We're not far enough removed from that where it's not impossible to go back and learn, because in 50 years, it's going to be very hard to go back and figure it out. And especially because a lot of these games just won't be playable.
Yeah.
And so I encourage younger gamers, and I do it often. A lot of people email me or we talk on Twitter or Facebook, whatever. I'm like, you got to go back and play these games. It's important. You really can't understand where games are now unless you go back and play those games. And I think it's important. Now, to his question, if you want to just enjoy yourself and you want to start with the NES, which is a great place to start, it's still my favorite console of all time by far. I think it would be important for me to understand what genres he's into, but I think you can easily say the Mario trilogy on there, both Zelda games, Castlevania, Mega Man. I would even jump into things like Dragon Warrior, Faxanadu, Crystalis, Star Tropics, Kid Icarus, Metroid. I mean, there's a lot of games on NES that are worth playing. And then SNES, it's a similar thing, but it's when we get to the SNES era that I think we really need to understand where he's coming from, because it starts to get so broad that, are you into role-playing games? Do you like side-scrollers or platformers?
Would you say that it'd be like from the NES on, it's like a triangle going down?
Sure. Yeah. That's exactly where I would say, because while I like going to Atari and even fucking around with games like in interim games like Pitfall or something like that, is there was a time when we couldn't imagine playing a game like Mario. Mario wasn't the first platformer, but it was the first platformer that we understood and really, as gamers, really grasped onto.
Yeah.
But going back to a time where no one even could make a game like that or make a game like that run, it's pretty extraordinary. And if you put yourself in 1982 mode and you're like, all right, I'm playing Miss Pac-Man, and I'm playing a shitty Pac-Man port on Atari 2600. This is what the best they could do, you know? And then you just go 3 years ahead and you have Mario Brothers. And you're like, Jesus Christ. Like, put yourself in that place and be like, 3 years ago I was playing this, and now I'm playing this. And then you go 6 years ahead of that, and you're like, now I'm playing Mario World.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from that, you're playing Super Metroid. And then 3 years from there, you're playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night. You know, it's like... the timeline is so essential.
Yeah.
I don't think you can really appreciate going back unless you are willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's my take. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think it takes work. It's not all fun and games.
Definitely. I mean, that's completely accurate. But so going from it, you got the NES and the SNES, and then there's the jump to the 3D consoles. So then in that era, I feel like there's much less games that you have to play because they're more similar to contemporary games.
That's true, and I also would say that I think this is when genre becomes really important. Your preferences become more important as time goes on because, PS1, N64 to a degree, but not nearly the degree of PS1, had such a vast library of game. A lot of the games sucked. There were, I mean, I'm not saying PS1 was a great console, but there's a lot of garbage on that console. But this is where it's like, do you like 3D platformers? Do you like role-playing games? Because this is a seminal role-playing game.
Let's take all
console.
of that stuff out of it. Like, what are just the games that people need to play? Because even on NES, it's like giving them Zelda. Like, if they don't like that type of game, they're not going to like it.
Sure,
you know?
I agree with what you're saying, but I do feel like on N64, like it would be easy to go like, all right, play Mario 64. But if you're not into 3D platformers, then who the fuck cares? You know, like there's other games on that console.
But I mean, you could say that about any of them, even if it's NES though, right, or SNES. Like,
sure, but there was my point is that there was just such a limited way to play games. There was side-scrolling games, and then top-down games, and then role-playing games, and some rudimentary sports games. But there wasn't. I'm just saying the more and more, because I would, you know, on PS1 for instance, I'd be like, well, you should probably play Final Fantasy VII, and you should certainly play Castlevania Symphony of the Night. But if you don't have sensibilities towards role-playing games, these might not speak to you. So that's.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like, give it a try.
Yeah,
right?
Final
These
Fantasy
are the games that you
Tactics
should
and
give it a
these games
try.
like that, yeah.
So Nick, what do you said that the NES is your favorite console
Easily, yeah.
because of the library. What about you?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, I did a lot of PC gaming. That's the problem. So, I mean, I'm talking early PC gaming too, which was like back in the freaking Disney. I would say probably NES. That's the NES is the one I remember the most because that was the one I shared with my brother. So we got like 2 times the amount of games we were allowed to have. By the time I got to the SNES, I think my brother he was done with it. I don't think he was gaming anymore. But there's a ton that we've already done a ton of Let's Plays too on just classic NES games. Most notably, I think did we just do Ninja Gaiden?
Yeah, Ninja
Yeah,
Gaiden
so
was
that's
a couple
another one.
months
That's one of those games you have to play. You gotta play. What the hell
Shit, the
else we
original
done?
Metal Gear is a game that I feel like you must play.
Contra.
Contra.
Yeah,
you gotta play. Contra.
There's a ton. I mean, there's a lot of.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can name. God, I love games like Kickle Cubicle and Arkeistas Ring. I mean, there's like really random shit on that console that these games are fun and they're quaint. There was no excuses back then. You know, you
Yeah.
couldn't be like, look at these this pretty
Paperboy.
story. Paperboy's a jam,
Must
man.
play.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like we should work our way up through the consoles just very quickly.
Yeah.
Just name like 3 games for each console. So we've already done NES. What about SNES?
I don't know if you can limit to 3, but just like without
just
a
a
number, but
handful
just
of
the
games.
ones like okay, Super Nintendo. So for my answer for best console for library, it'd be Super Nintendo, PS2.
Okay.
Like for sure.
Well, definitely for life.
if I had to
don't think
choose
anyone
one,
would.
Super Nintendo. But Super Nintendo obviously got Mario World, Final Fantasy VI, which would be 3 in America.
A Link to the Past.
Link to the Past, Super Metroid.
Fucking ActRaiser is on that console. I mean, and these are. It's tough, man. There's a lot. I mean, Super Nintendo's a tough one because there's a lot of games. But I was so role playing centric. I mean, if you like games, role playing games, you want to play
Chrono Trigger
or Lufia, or like, I mean, there's Final Fantasy IV is another one that you'll want to play. If you can import games, I mean, that's when things get really crazy. You can start playing, I think, like Front Mission and Dragon Quest V, and I there's like SNES is interesting because that was such a diverse and versatile system. Even like the original Star Fox.
Donkey Kong Country 2 is awesome.
Yeah, I even say like again, and I don't want to go back to it, but again, if you're not trying to just straight up have fun, but like absorb yourself in the tech and figure out where people were, like a game like Pilot Wings, I think is an essential game. Like I remember when I first played Pilot Wings, I thought this was like I was like I can't believe this game. This game, Pilot Wings sucks. I just want to straight up say Pilot Wings
bad.
sucks.
It really,
But
yeah, I mean, that
but
was
like
really
it was
is.
so incredible,
polygons, man.
Yeah, I was like, I remember being like 8 years old, being like, this is incredible. I can't believe this game exists.
Yeah, I feel like you can't talk about early console gaming without talking about the failures too, or the games that you got where you're like, I'm so excited about this, and because you didn't know, and they were just bad or so incredibly hard that you were like, am I the only person on this planet that is having this much difficulty with this, or are there other people, right? So it's almost worth throwing a couple games in there where you're like, you're not gonna like this, but like play Ninja Turtles, right? Try to get past this level.
Yeah.
With the freaking underwater bombs, and just understand that this is what we used to be up against in this fight for video game glory, and then go back and play a different game. That's actually better and more fun and a little bit easier as far as the degree of difficulty is concerned. Because if I remember correctly, TMNT was like, it was like a cone.
It had spikes
Fucking
that didn't make any fucking
spiked
sense.
hard. But then moving forward, I mean N64. That's easy. There's like 3 I can easily name. You got to play Mario. You got to play GoldenEye. You got to play
Zelda.
Yeah, you probably got to play Zelda.
Probably.
I didn't like Zelda. I couldn't get past the controls. That
You're
was my
insane.
only thing. That's
Ocarina
when I
of
stopped
Time
playing Zelda.
That is required. So there's that, Mario 64, GoldenEye, and Mario Kart 64.
Yeah, you got to play Mario Kart. Mario Kart's still jam. We played that at Screw Attack, and I was like, dude, it comes right back to you.
Yeah.
Even though we were playing with controllers that were completely broke ass.
And there's others. I mean, I would say Majora's Mask is a must play on Zelda or on N64. I know people think it's crazy. I loved both Castlevania games on the 64. I think those games were chronically underrated considering the time they came from. I don't understand quite why people hated them so much. They were hard. I think even there's like random like Hybrid Heaven. There's like random ass games on N64 that were kind of weird.
I love your answers are so bizarre. Hybrid Heaven.
Because I'm saying like there's obvious directions to go in, but I don't always know that that's the right direction to go in. If you and Mario 64, you know how I feel about Mario 64. I think it's super overrated, and it's almost to a point where it's like,
How is it overrated?
It's because he's crazy and he thinks Sunshine's better, but you know.
But what I'm saying is like Mario 64 is an essential game to play if you want to understand where we were playing at the time. But if you want to play a great 3D Mario game and you have time to play one, you play Galaxy. Or something like that.
Yeah, but
so
even then, like still, he was around for Galaxy, so we'll skip out on
or
that.
Sunshine, of course.
But no.
Wait,
But going back to like Genesis even. Like
Yeah.
you
I
gotta
say I
play
never
the
played
Sonic.
any
You have
Genesis
to play
games.
the Sonic games just to play them at least. Like
Yeah,
just to
no,
know.
I never liked the Sonic games. I couldn't get that first level. I was like, God, this is just terrible.
No, it's not.
I didn't like them.
It really
I'm
is.
sorry.
It really
you
is.
guys are crazy.
They were just bad.
They were not.
They were just a
bad.
different type of gameplay that I wasn't used to and never liked. I'm not saying they were bad. They were beautiful games. They were stunning, but I was like, I don't understand this type of gameplay. It does not vibe with me. I feel like I have zero control over this character because you don't.
Because you don't have any control.
No, you totally do. The 1, 2, and 3. You kidding me?
It's all about speed, man. Look how fast Sonic is, man. He's so fast.
Yeah,
that's
he's
like
never,
the
you know
first-
what? He's never stopping to figure out if he's making
First
the right
zone in
turns.
each game, and besides that, doesn't have anything to do with that.
Genesis games. So I think that the only Genesis games that I would recommend that I think people really need to play because I think they're seminal and chronically underrated, and I can't believe that this series doesn't exist anymore in the same way. It's Phantasy Star. Like Phantasy Star 1 is a Master System game, but 2, 3, and 4 are Genesis games, and they're sci-fi role-playing games. That wasn't that common, especially on console. We weren't seeing them.
Phantasy Star, I don't even remember
We
that
weren't
game.
even seeing them. Yeah,
It was like
PHA.
Final Fantasy, but
Those games are great.
Sega version.
And so I think that people deserve, if you're a role playing game fan, those are games that were so very different, I think, from most of what was coming. I mean, we had like Robo Trek and Earthbound and whatever the fuck was going on SNES at the time in terms of more sci-fi or modern day role playing games, but it was much more common. It still is much more common to play a fantasy game in that genre. And so I think, yeah, those games, especially if people really love Phantasy Star 4 as well. I think it's very expensive to find it.
What about like Golden? What was it Golden Axe?
Oh, Golden Axe and yeah.
Altered. Was there Altered Beast?
Oh, Jesus. Don't play Altered Beast. So Altered Beast
Which one was Altered Beast? I get those two confused. Golden Axe is the one where you.
Great.
One is the one where you you pick your 3 guys. It's the 2.5D, right? You're like you always have to do with the big axe. Then someone else got stuck.
That's
playing
Golden Axe.
The dwarf. Is that Golden Axe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
game was dope.
No, the Golden Axes are fun games. Don't play Altered Beast. But
Altered
again,
Beast.
Altered Beast might be the worst game I've ever played in my life.
Really?
Yeah, the game sucks.
I mean, it does suck.
That
but
game sucks. And what's so funny about it? Well, so again, we were talking about Altered Beast would be a fun game to play if you want to know how bad a game can get because Altered Beast is fucking atrocious.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Atrocious.
Get you some Altered Beast.
No.
I remember this game.
No.
It's so it just doesn't get much worse than that.
You're a guy that you turn into a werewolf, right? Or
Yeah,
something
but
like
it's
that.
so slow. The sprites are huge. It's like this most plotting. The game sucks. The game sucks. I hate that game so much. When it came out on PS3, I'm like, I gotta play this again. I downloaded it, and I was like,
man.
oh my god, this game's awful.
So okay, is there any more Genesis?
No, I mean, I'm not too evangelical. About Genesis.
I'm not too familiar with the Genesis library, especially from a
Greg's not
quality
here.
standpoint. It's more, I love the Sonic games. Then N64, Star Fox 64 is the one that I was
What
thinking
about Smash?
See, Smash, I would wait for the GameCube.
Yeah.
Like if you're only going to play one of them, to get really into it, I think Melee is the right one to start with. I mean, 64 is cool to look at and be like, oh, this is where it came from. But I think Melee really is
That's when they actually
the real
got
birth
it.
of the franchise. But PlayStation, I mean, that's the one that I think that there's a lot of games that are required reading. There's the Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, and Castlevania.
Castlevania Symphony of the Night, the Resident Evil games.
Yeah, Resident Evil.
what about
1,
fighting games?
2. Oh, fighting games. Yeah, Street Fighter 2
Street Fighter
on
2.
Super Nintendo.
Right. Oh yeah, you
And,
gotta have that on SNES.
Mortal
That's-
Kombat 2, I think, is also required just to play, like just to know.
I mean,
you know?
that game was totally cultural at that point too. So it's a cool game to go back to and put yourself in that time.
What console was Virtua Fighter on? Was that
That
PS1?
was Saturn.
Saturn.
And
That was
then
Saturn.
Dreamcast. Oh, Soul Calibur on Dreamcast.
Soul Calibur. That's what I'm
Dreamcast.
thinking of.
Soul
And then
Calibur
Tekken.
1.
When did Tekken come in?
Tekken was PlayStation. I'm not sure how required
Tekken was
Tekken
legit,
is,
though,
but
man.
Tekken,
Just to
it's
see where that came
like
from.
3D arenas and all
Yeah.
that shit. Like it wasn't the first to do it, but it was definitely one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
The Crash Bandicoot series, it's important.
You love it. You love
do,
you some
I
Crash
do.
Bandicoot.
And like really seeing, like knowing that in the 90s platformers were where it's at, you know, and playing those, seeing how things have changed. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 on PlayStation. I think that's very important for the history of games and how things changed then. It became way more licensed, focused, and all that stuff.
And I'm assuming we're not going to bring in PC gaming into any of this.
Well, I mean,
You can Steam.
Yeah, what
Steam is a
Yeah,
smorgasbord.
you gotta go. I mean, there's that's
classic games.
too much.
Well, I was going to say we probably should end it there just because we've already given him thousands of dollars worth of recommendations.
Yeah.
So he's already going to have to pick and choose.
Go back if you haven't played. Go back and play the Half-Life. All the Half-Life games are amazing.
But if he wants to reach out to me or anyone wants to reach out and just you can just ask what genre, what console. I mean, because we can get much more specific about these things. It's just these are kind of the overarching kind of game. I mean, everyone should
XCOM.
play Mario or something like that. Yeah,
and
XCOM.
PS2, just to go up there because I gave Smash on GameCube. Xbox, play Halo 1 for sure, and PS2, GTA 3, and Vice City even. You know, San Andreas. I don't know if it is as important.
I never played San Andreas. I played for like 5
I mean,
seconds.
it's awesome, but it's like I think Vice City held that
Up
real
until
special.
What was the last one that just came out?
5.
5. Up until 5, my idea of Grand Theft Auto was I jump in one of my buddy's save games, and whatever car he has, and just fucking destroy the town, and then get arrested, and then he gets pissed off at me. That's all I ever did.
I mean, hey, that's an option.
Yeah.
All right. Third topic of the day is what we hope is added to the to the consoles. So this is spurred by the announcement or the rumors of the PS4 firmware 3.0 and the Xbox One's August update. So Xbox now has 1080p 60 game streaming. So you can just stream the games in what is essentially the now standard for video stuff. But the problem there is most of the Xbox One games aren't 1080 anyway. So this is just like,
Yeah, it was a little weird,
yeah, it's
but
interesting.
Cool for the future. They'll
That's
get
like
the games there.
future-proofing, yeah.
You can now right-click on one of your friends and select send message or invite to party to more quickly connect with your friends. I'm sure that's something that people that do that are super stoked about. Notifications, you can enable or disable them for when you're invited to parties, which is awesome because we get that all the time when we're doing Let's Plays. You can see an animated display showing all your recently played games, so you can go into those. You can compare achievements with a friend. That's awesome.
That's fun.
They've updated My Games to support a grid view with the jump list where your games are now displayed in a grid alphabetically. And if you click on one, you can collapse it and stuff. So you can just organize your games better. You can manually add games to your collection. So ones that, for whatever reason, don't just automatically pop up. And yeah, so every month they're like constantly updating this stuff and like doing all this. And you were saying that this is like a thing that like Major Nelson announces on
Yeah, I think Microsoft does a really nice job with this actually because they make it a point to do something substantial to the console every month, which I think is cool. Sony is a little more sporadic, and people are a little more sarcastic about Sony, and I don't blame them because Sony just releases random ass firmware updates that ruin people's lives because they just never stop. And they don't seem to do anything really substantial. But then 2.0 is substantial, 3.0 is rumored to be pretty substantial too, and yeah, the beauty of these consoles, and it goes back to almost the last question when someone was asking about what it was like, you know, what game should you go back and play, and what were the consoles like. It was so funny, like we have these consoles now, and I think we take it for granted. It really started with PS3 and Xbox 360, and Wii. And before that, really, you could fuck around. You could fuck around with PS2 and PS1, like you just put them on, but they don't do anything. These consoles don't do anything. Like you turn on an NES without a cartridge, and it doesn't work. You know, and now we have these machines that will do. You can have a robust $400 experience on a PS4 without ever playing a game on it because it's just such a great entertainment hub. And the same thing with Xbox One, which is a little cheaper. So it's exciting to think about what these consoles could do and like what the future of these consoles might be, and not only in terms of games, but in terms of their functionality, which is why I'm so disappointed still that Microsoft kind of backed off on their original strategy because I really wanted to see what that was going to be. I was really curious about that. They had a totally different idea for their system. Now their system's just like a PS4, which is great for gamers.
You're talking about the always on.
Just the always on, they had a whole TV structure to it. They were gonna have a bunch of original shows on it. They were gonna do all these like sports interactivity.
Oh right,
so,
they had a Halo. They had a Spielberg Halo,
which is still apparently in production. But they shut
they
down
had a
their
different
whole.
one,
They
didn't
shut
they?
down their whole TV division.
Yeah.
The Xbox originals. or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah.
So
that's too bad.
I was interested in that because it just seemed like it was such an exciting.
It
was hard to communicate it, but it could have been a very exciting thing if it worked out.
It's unfortunate too because that's sort of the name of the game right now, right? Is if you own the distribution platform or the streaming platform, which Xbox and Sony or Microsoft and Sony own, then the next natural step is to start creating your own content. And Sony's already doing it. I think they have. I don't watch any of their original programming, but I think they have Powers, right? Which is their first foray into the original programming, and they may have done one or two things before that, but it's cool. I mean, that's the future, right? And that's what I get excited about. Is like every day I know you guys check, you go play games. Well, guess what? I log on, or not log on. I fire up my PS4, and the first thing I do is check Netflix, see what's new on there, and then I'll go over to the actual movies and TV and see what's new to rent. Most notably, like recently, I just rented Gods and Monsters from there because I'd much rather give Sony money than Comcast. I'll just throw that out there. I can rent them on Comcast.
We have a war with Comcast,
but
going
I'd
on
much
right
rather
now.
give Sony, a company that I support, the extra $5 here and there. But I would love to see more original programming come from them, and I would love to see them, utilize some of their licenses to make that programming because I think Sony has the leverage to do that. And that's when you start getting into a kind of a bigger discussion. But like, how many properties does Sony have access to that would make awesome TV shows or awesome Netflix shows or awesome HBO shows? If they could do that style of content, they have that audience that is there utilizing their console and interacting with it every day for hours on end. That's not even something Netflix has. Like, Netflix doesn't have the active user really. You start playing something and then it asks you if you want to autoplay the next one, and you're like, well, the controller's 2 feet away and I don't really want to reach over there. So I go, there's another Columbo episode going. But like with PS4, you've just got so much more to it, right? Ooh, sorry. So that's what I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see them get more content that I can watch and start getting more into the original content sphere.
Yeah.
I don't know how well Powers is doing for them. That's the other problem, is no one's actually, like, games
No
at
one
least
fucking
get
knows
reported
anything. Yeah.
numbers, right? There's a report every quarter of what game sold what. But with all these new shows, we have no idea if any of them are doing well.
Yeah.
Zero. There's no metrics for them whatsoever.
So the rumored leaked list for PS4 firmware 3.0 updates, we got events that have been added to the function items. So all events that started with PlayStation are now brought together, enabling you to discover, participate in, and watch the events in a centralized area. Communities have been added to friends, so that's pretty cool. Kind of funny community.
Yeah, we'll have a kind of funny community, presumably.
You can go to Now Playing to see what games or party members of the community are enjoying right now. The layout of the message screen has been improved. You can now broadcast your gameplay to YouTube, and you can upload clips straight to Twitter with a 10-second limitation. So that sounds thrilling for everybody.
A 10-second
10
limitation
second videos on Twitter.
on Twitter.
I didn't know that limitation existed. I thought it was just whatever length you wanted on Twitter, but maybe it's just this.
I think it's just on their end.
It's interesting. The layout of Live from PlayStation has been improved for the share features and stuff. On settings, you can change the speed for automatic text scrolling. There's more community stuff, so you can watch gameplay from, like, if you're in a community, you can watch the gameplay from people that are streaming. And then other random stuff that you post your comments for activity and what's new. You can now enjoy conversations with your friends using like stickers and messages. PlayStation Plus has been added to the function items, so you can see all your benefits in one place. Accessibility features are now available when you're playing Blu-ray discs or DVDs. You can restrict the use of games while looking at age level information and rating icons, and you can create a sub-account for a minor by selecting new user. You can now adjust settings for web filtering services, blah, blah, blah. It's like a bunch of parental stuff that
Works for Jared.
yeah.
Jesus Christ.
God
was
damn,
that too
Nick.
soon? That's too soon.
Jared Fogle, the Subway guy. So, what do you think about this, Colin?
Allegedly.
I don't know. It sounds cool. I mean, I
Allegedly
still think
works
that there's
for
some functionality that they need to add. The problem that we're going to start running into, I think, and this is a problem that was with PS3 and Xbox 360 as well, but so it might not be as extreme, but it might be over the years, is these consoles still have a very limited power range that they can really explore, and a limited amount. Their footprint is very limited in the sense of what they want to utilize system resources with to put onto the system that need to run all the time. So the more ambitious these consoles get, the more taxed the consoles are going to become, I guess is what I'm saying. And so this is something that they need to be very cognizant of. It's not a problem right now, but it could be a problem in the future, and it might affect the way games run and all that kind of stuff. So they have to be very careful about not adding too much to these consoles. PS4 needs to worry more about its infrastructure. PS4's PSN still doesn't work properly, and it's
In what way?
friends lists don't load, messages don't load, notifications don't load sometimes. Like it's just a very latent system still. It doesn't interact with the internet very well. Still.
Got it.
Things stream fine on it. Online play is great. It's a stupendous step in the right direction compared to PS3. There's no doubt about it. But they need to clean those things up. Obviously, they need to let people change their names still and do some database restructuring to make that easier. Reconcile their trophy kind of database with their username database, which are two separate things right now, based on the way it was built. So I think there's a lot of like behind the scenes thing they need to add. But I'm pretty satisfied. I got to be honest with the way PS4 is right now, and Xbox One, which I've been messing around with more and more lately. Is fine too. I don't like the way I don't like navigating PS4 or Xbox One. I think it's confusing. Yeah. But it does a lot of.
The PS4 is kind of confusing too.
I mean, my thing is, honest. I don't think any of the systems got it down in a non-confusing fashion. Like every time I use them, there's always something. Whenever I'm trying to find something, it's harder than it should be.
360, I don't remember being that.
But I think
bad.
that's because you used it for so long.
You think so? Is it because I just interacted with the guy? Because I remember the first time I started messing around with the cross media bar, because I wasn't, again, I had a 360. I put a small amount of games on it. Didn't mess around with PS3 at all. But I was amazed that when I fired up my PS4 for the first time and really started playing around with it, that I was like, I still don't necessarily have the memory of where things are. And that tells me that it's not necessarily the best UI design, you know? Whereas after the first 3 or 4 times, it should just be kind of muscle memory of where you're going to turn the power off the system or updates or where your movies are or like where your Netflix is.
I still don't know how to turn the system off.
I don't know that you can turn the system off, to be perfectly honest.
You turn it off, unplug it, walk away, and it still starts beeping.
Yeah, it's still doing stuff and the light's still on, and like you plug it back in, you get an error message that pops up. It's like, hey, fucker, you didn't turn this off the correct way. And I'm disappointed with you. And I'm like, is Dad? Is Dad in here?
Oh my God.
What's happening?
What's interesting about that is I was a PS3 guy last gen, not
Right.
360. So whenever I used someone's 360, I was like fucking lost. But the cross media bar made sense to me. But I think that's because I'd used it on the PSP, used it on the PS3. So I'm just like, all right, I get this. I understand if I'm turning the system off, go to the left, go up.
Right.
Like it was muscle memory. Games, you go to, you know what I mean? At least it kind of broke it down. Going now, it's way more of like a Windows 8 style tile thing on both PlayStation and much more so on Xbox.
I like that. I like that design though. Like, and I actually didn't. A lot of people I haven't messed around with Xbox One that much, but when I remember distinctly when the 360 went from the blading structure to that more tile structure, I was like, this makes a lot more sense. Now I can understand where my content's grouped and how it's grouped. And I only have like 4 or 5 main screens where I can just kind of shift through, and that's where my apps are. Cool. Okay, my apps are right there. And then you can like pin them to your home screen, so you could just really kind of customize it that way. I don't know if you could do the same thing with PS4, but like that was one of the cool things that I liked, was you could go in and just kind of star what you wanted, and then your home screen would be like, you would blade over right, and that's where all my stuff would be. And I only use like 3 of them. It's like Netflix and the movies, and that was pretty much it. And so I mean it's still a little confusing, a little clutter for me. Even when I pop in a game and I'm like, wait a minute, why are there 3 games like that are listed on my cross media bar? Like I don't understand that. Like shouldn't that just be its own category of games that I've played and things like that? So I don't think they've perfected it just yet.
I mean, to be fair, like these days there is so much going on that I don't know if there is
but there's not really that much going on.
Well, there is
really. It's all going on in apps. Like that's from my perspective what I'm looking at. Like from how I utilize it, I'm like, there's the one screen that's just TV that I constantly go to, and I go down, and there's like HBO Now. And
what I'm saying is, it's like there's a lot going on because it's not just popping a fucking game and it starts playing.
That's true. That's very true.
It's like, where's your saves? Where's your games? Where's the apps that you've recently downloaded that are installing? Where's the new stuff that the store's promoting? Where's the store? Where's the Twitter and the this and that? It's like, where's the messages popping up from your friend invites? Where, you know what I mean? There's so much.
A lot of stuff.
And it's like, it's not just like there's a video app that's all your video stuff, because there's Netflix, but then there's also them recommending powers, because maybe the third recommendation will get you to actually click it. It's like there's all of this stuff happening. And like that is something that I'm like, wait, do I have this game or do I need to download this game when it has like icons of it and stuff? And it gets confusing. Now, using it for like I'm complaining, but it's like if you don't eventually understand it, you're just not paying attention.
That's the problem too, right? Is it like it's like your iPhone, where you're like everyone's like, oh, the iPhone's the easiest thing on the planet to it's very intuitive and this and that. Still, there's a learning curve to it, right? There's a level of learning that you have to have for any of these things, because beyond a certain point, beyond just putting a disc in and having it play, you gotta figure out how things work. You have the fundamental understanding of what an app is and how to download it. That was also one of the things that when I started downloading games and downloading updates, I'm like, what is this process? because it asks you like 8 times whether you want to download something, and then there's an update, and the update file goes for. You're like, all right.
Do you want to turn off your console after this finishes downloading
You're like,
or installing
no,
something?
I
It's like,
don't want-
holy
no.
shit, I want to play the game as soon as possible.
Yeah. And then also the power, the fact that it is kind of always on, still it mystifies me. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I can't turn this thing off. Yeah, that's it. I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
maybe a
it's
permanent
crazy.
option to turn off the damn light on the controller would be amazing too, so it doesn't go through a controller every hour that I'm watching Netflix.
Did you dim it? You can dim it.
I did.
Your controller should
still-
last longer than
still
an hour.
like that.
Rumble
It-
a lot really makes your controller
It
fuck up
lasts
too.
like 3 hours, and then it gives me the error message of like, hey, just FYI, this is out. You won't be able to control anything with this, and then it is done. It's done.
Yeah, that's what it says
done.
directly.
You won't be able to
The
control
one thing that
anything.
I want, and I know this isn't so much like a firmware update as much as a big change, but I want more classics. Like I want a dedicated virtual console style system on the PSN. They did it last time with PS3 and like PS4. I guess PS Now was there's so much PS is in there. But PS Now is kind of their answer to that, but it's not an answer. You know?
What's so funny about that, man, is that Microsoft just blew them out of the water with backwards compatibility, which I still think I stand by, and I said it at E3, and I'll say it again. That was probably the biggest announcement at E3 because they did something that they shouldn't have been able to do. The Xbox One was not supposed to be able to do that, and they figured it out, and it proved to me that Microsoft's really trying on the software side to make it work. I mean, this is a fancy way to emulate games, basically, but it's awesome that they did that, and they just took Sony's $400 million investment in this company and in Gaikai and with PlayStation Now and just fucking blew it up. Because now they're just saying like, well, we don't need to, like, you invested in this for backwards compatibility. We have real backwards compatibility or it's virtual backwards compatibility, but we have a whole back catalog of games. Now suddenly, as long as they start activating them and publishers give them permission, they can have hundreds and hundreds of new games on the Xbox One by the end of all this. Meanwhile, Sony has a system that just based on, even if things are working at the speed of light, which they are through Ethernet cables throughout the country, like there's going to be latency, there's going to be problems, things aren't going to work.
Graphics aren't going to look quite as good. There's going to be like weird jaggies.
Man,
and
they
stuff.
really shoved their fucking boot up Sony's ass with that one. I really think that's still an understated kind of thing because Sony looked stupid now. Sony looks dumb now with this. They're like, Microsoft's like, we have backwards compatibility with the Xbox 360's Xbox Live. That's basically what it is. And you can download all of these games as long as we have permission to do that or whatever. They're going to continue to roll these games out. And Sony's like, well, and they're like, oh, by the way, if you already owned it on Xbox 360, well, you own the game. So you get Mass Effect for free. You're going to get Fallout 3 for free or whatever. Sony's like, well, if you own Catherine on PS3, you can pay us again to play it on PS4. You know? And I'm like,
through PS Now.
through PS Now. And I'm like,
which is
geez
not
Louise, man.
ideal for anyone.
Yeah, I was like, when I saw that, I was like, I really feel like, I know people think it's a big deal and that they're excited about it, but I'm like, that is the big deal out of that conference. I'm like, that is a really, really bold move. You know,
Especially
Yeah,
when
but
my
it's-
PS3 is sitting there with all these PS1 classics on it that I love. You know, anytime we do Let's Plays in here, I can't just download them from PS4. I need to bring my
these consoles don't speak to
PS3
each other.
It's so, but that seems silly to me, right? And I understand there's a lot more intricacies, and from a layman's terminology, like I'm not getting a lot of. Like I forget who we were talking to at E3. One of the devs that came on our post conference breakdown, Nathan.
Vela.
Yeah, Nathan Vela was like, no, it's really complicated, and there's a lot of different architecture that you have to deal with, and this, that, and the other thing. But to me, I'm like, how is that any different than PC gaming, right? Because these are essentially just PCs at this point, right? They're just consoles that have chipsets, they have graphics cards, they have an operating system. They're running. I don't understand how it's that complex, and part of me has to think that it's still. There's a lot of business that plays into it too, right? And obviously, it's not a priority for them to make this happen because it costs a lot of money. And to your point, you do end up rebuying the games, right? So there is a loss of revenue if you make everything backward compatible as opposed to having another system where you have to rebuy the game.
But
Like,
even then, though, like what I'm saying about PS3, you had to rebuy the games.
yeah, but what I'm saying, like, so look at what's happening with the Uncharted collection, right? They release these collections, and then all of a sudden you end up paying again for a game that you've already played, or if you're like me, you've never played, and you're like, cool, this is an opportunity to play like maybe up-res versions of what's going on.
Well, yeah,
with
but
the original games.
If they just offered it digitally, people would just rebuy them. Like that's not ideal. Of course, I want them free, but it's like if they released the Crash Bandicoot 1, 2, and 3 on PS4, I would buy it.
Right.
You know, but it's like they're just not doing that because of PS Now.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was one of the things that I walked away from with at E3 with Microsoft's stance too. Is I'm like, wow, this is a bold move because this costs a lot of money. They dedicated a lot of engineers to this. When you read about it and learn and talk and you know you've learned about the things that people talk to Phil Spencer and these guys, like they dedicated a lot of resources to this. They made it happen. It wasn't supposed to be possible. They made it possible. And now they've shot themselves in the foot.
But see, I don't know.
They've shot themselves in the foot releasing like collections really now. Like not only themselves but also their partners. Because now like Mass Effect Trilogy I thought for sure was a shoe-in for something that was going to happen before the Andromeda came out, probably like next summer or something like that. And I'll probably still release it, but a lot of people are going to be like, I can just download them now. So like there's no money to be made there. But Microsoft's not stupid. That was a calculated effort to be like, look at like what we're doing. This is a pro-consumer move. Aren't you happy? You know? And Sony, meanwhile, sitting there being like counting their nickels and their dimes, which they have to do because they're a struggling company. And they're looking at this $400 million investment, and it's like, man, maybe you should have taken some of that money and invested in some engineers that would have just made PS4 backwards compatible with PS3 in some way, or the PSN backwards compatible with the PSN from PS3.
To give them credit for it though, I mean, PS Now in idea is amazing. Like it is really them trying to be the Netflix for PlayStation games, and that's an awesome goal. It's just you got to be the Netflix then. Don't be the freaking Vidmo or whatever the hell, you know what I mean? Like failed ass.
Right.
Things.
Well, I mean, that's my thing, though, because for Sony, I can understand a little bit differently, right? Because the difference in their the chipsets was way crazier, right? They had the cell processor in PS3, and now they're on a more traditional set of processors. But for Microsoft, that's why I get that it was hard, and I'd love to read the article. I don't want to misspeak, but at the same time, I'm like, what? Isn't it just like a more powerful version of the 360? Like,
no, I think that's oversimplifying.
Is that
360 was easier to develop for, but
it's
it
still
doesn't mean that
C++ architecture, though, right? It's still the same. Wasn't it the same similar architecture? Which is
I don't presume to know that. All I know is that
I could be talking out of my ass.
All I know is that it's difficult. It's like we've had conversations with Sony about the very act of changing your name on PSN is going to cost them like millions of dollars if they want to really do it. Like they need to figure out a way to engineer these things. Like there's huge systemic problems on the networks that everything always seems more easier on the outside until you have to actually make it work.
Sure, I mean you're talking about a lot of
these
data.
aren't dumb people. I mean the people at Sony and Microsoft that are engineering these consoles are not stupid. Like they, and it's a matter of they can solve it. It's just a matter of saying like how many resources do we have to dedicate to this and is it worth it? And to Sony they're locked in now. It reminds me a lot of what I was saying about 3D gaming. Like when we got into N64 and Saturn and PS1, and there was this problem presented to the developers about, well, what does a 3D game look like? And Nintendo went in the way of like, we're going to make an open world that doesn't have a lot of textures and stuff like that. And Naughty Dog was like, we're going to make our game really pretty and vibrant, and it's going to be 3D, but it's kind of like linear and stuff. And Sega made their own solution with Knights, which is kind of
not really a solution.
Yeah, not really a solution at all.
Nice,
but the point is that they all had the same problem and they found different solutions. And we're at a similar thing now where it's like we have a problem with backwards compatibility, no access to the old libraries. Sony's solution was we'll stream them, and Microsoft's solution was we'll just invest a lot of money into the architecture to make them free, as long as you already own them. And those are just two solutions to the same problem. Yeah. And just like Mario 64 was probably the right solution ultimately in terms of influencing everything around it.
It's the same thing they did last gen too, with the 360.
Sure,
there was just downloadable firmware updates to let you play Xbox games.
And so that's what I'm saying is like I really feel like a lot of this has to do with the business strategy behind it, right? Of like creating that artificial demand and then all of a sudden going like we quote unquote figured out a way. And I'm sure that is the way it worked. I'm sure they did a cost benefit analysis and was like it's not worth the initial upfront investment of making these consoles completely backward compatible. But at the same time, like wouldn't it have been easier if they just did that? I mean, knowing that they had to utilize this strategy and it was probably a big shift considering their poor showing 2 E3s ago of coming out and saying we need to get back in the public graces. But at the same time, it's like they're building the console, right? So why couldn't they build that functionality into the basic beginning of it? And the only thing that they can, the answer is they can, because Microsoft already proved it. So it's not impossible. Something they thought was quote unquote impossible suddenly becomes possible a year later.
But it's not. But that's the point. It's specifically the difficulty with PS4 is that PS4 to run native PS3 games would need the cell processor in the box.
Sure.
They need a way to figure out, much like Microsoft did, I think, the way to emulate the games.
Yeah.
And I think that's like what they're doing. Like there needs to be. And this would solve the problem with PS1 and PS2 classics too, a way to just emulate the PS3 on the PS2, or on the PS4 rather.
Well, what's crazy with the PS3 was depending on which PS3 you had, some were backwards compatible completely.
Yeah, they took it out.
Some were kind of backwards compatible, and most of them just weren't at all. And it's like, what the fuck?
Was it first generation? No.
The first
generation
one,
was backwards
there was a
compatible?
more expensive one that was backwards compatible.
And then they just stopped doing
last
it.
one wasn't. And then the second generation one, which is the one I had, was semi-compatible. Like some games worked, some games didn't, depending on who God knows what. But then eventually, like, fuck it, we're just not going to have it.
But they did that. They did that for the same reason that they're doing this now, which is like they can't release collections and milk that old generation and do PS2 classics. You can just put fucking PS2 games in your PS3. It was so obvious why they did that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And that was why people were. That's why people were so upset about it. But I understand.
That's why people should be upset about it. You should still be upset about it. Like these consoles. like from a user standpoint, you should be able to just take the other one out, put the other one in, and you should be able to play your back library of games if you have the physical media behind
For me,
it.
I think it's even less about the physical at this point because I understand the technical limitations of the physical stuff. It's the digital stuff that blows my mind. I can't believe that I can't just play all the PSN games. Like, why isn't PSN the console? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
a cloud console,
Yeah.
like just having all your games stored, all your saves stored, and you just
And again,
you
I
literally
don't
plug
know
in-
how this
because
works,
that's
but-
the issue I have right now too. Is like these consoles seemingly have really long lifespans, but with the acceleration of how technological innovation's going, like they're already outdated, right? I mean, there's PCs on the market or even laptops in the market that seemingly have better processors in them because it's been 2 years since these consoles came out.
There
so
were PCs when they launched that were better.
yeah, so like, how do you handle that, right? And like, I'm fine making the initial investment of like similar to a cell phone, like $300-400 every couple of years just to upgrade them. But not if I can't play all the games that I have in my library. And it's like
huge.
Yeah, you know.
And it's interesting too,
Which
because
is
it's
crazy
like-
because isn't it the same with movies? If I buy a movie on PSN, can't I just have that across the board?
Presumably, yeah.
Yeah, I've never tried. I don't,
Yeah, I don't know
buy
how that
movies
all
anymore because why?
But that's the thing is it's really interesting that I mean I'm sure there's details and reasons why this isn't a thing, but why don't we just have PSN accounts that we download games to and can play them on the different systems? Because if it's downloadable, why isn't it just playable?
Well, I mean, but that's I understand why that isn't because the games are again they need. You shouldn't be able to download a PS4 game and play it on Vita, so it's not going to work. The Vita can't run the game.
Sorry, I'm not talking. And see, this is where it
it's
falls
complex.
apart
I'm
because of
oversimplifying.
the modern being able to download
The
full modern games. I'm talking about like the smaller games, like Limbo. You know what I mean?
Right, but again, you can't. I understand what you're saying, but that is a semantical issue in terms of like Limbo just can't run on a Vita unless it's they do something to it because it's just these are just totally different pieces of hardware. I'm
Yeah,
telling you
makes
the point,
sense, man.
and that's why PlayStation Now made sense because PlayStation Now was scalable, and that was what they were trying to do. PlayStation Now could be scaled to PS4 and PS3 and Vita, you know, and then use like cloud processing to play the games or beam them to your system. That's why I'm saying. It would just be great if the PS4 could emulate the PS3. That is the solution to the problem. Just emulate the fucking PlayStation 3. But again, we can easily, we're totally ignorant on these things.
we
Like,
just
we can
say
say
the
it
things.
all day, but I mean, that's the
No,
ideal
I mean-
situation. But I'm sure that there's a million reasons why they can't do it or they won't do it. Can they do it? Probably.
I guess what I'm saying is like with
I know
Limbo
they can. They
specifically,
can.
if you download Limbo, you
This
get
is
it
not-
for Vita and for PS3. You know, I guess those are just two different versions. But you download PS1 classics, you get them for both. For PSP and PS3 and Vita.
But they're emulating. But the emulator works on all the consoles. That's all on PS3 and Vita.
But why wouldn't that emulator work on PS4?
Because it's probably just not made for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm
So-
saying. Like it's not as easy as just saying like make it work on this and this. It's like okay, like if you're making a game for I know a lot of developers that make games for PlayStation products, and it's not as easy just saying all right, send the game to the Vita.
No,
like
I
look
know
at
that,
Axiom
but, like,
Verge. Axiom Verge has been delayed for like 6 months
Well, that's
on
also
Vita.
because
True.
they don't. I mean, it boils down to money. Let me put it to you blatantly, like plain English. It's all possible if you have the right amount of money behind it and time. Like it's not impossible to make any game run on any console if you have enough money. This is not like solving the formula for fucking faster than light travel, right? Where we just don't have the math to do this yet, right? We haven't figured it out yet. This is just purely someone looking at a book and going, it's just too expensive. It's not going to make us enough money, so we cannot invest in this right now. And it makes sense. It's business. I get that. And it sucks. But like to say that like so we did something that we didn't think was possible, for Microsoft to say that, I'm like, well, then you really have no faith in your engineering staff because it's clearly possible they figured it out a year later.
Yeah,
like,
I think they were just. I mean, first of all, I'm sure that
It's like
part
out
of
of
it
their
is.
ass.
I'm sure part of it is like, look how hard we worked. But I'm also
get that.
sure a part of it is they probably weren't. I don't know if they didn't think it was necessarily possible as much, and I don't know the exact verbiage that they used, but it was something like that when we were watching the thing. Like we didn't, think we were going to be able to pull this off. Whatever they said.
Sure.
But it's more about them saying like we just didn't anticipate that we would ever have to do this, and then we wanted to do it. And the console was made and finalized probably in like 2011 when they started probably sending it out to everyone. So they're like, this is the console we built, and we can't do anything about it now. Which is why I was so surprised that these consoles weren't a little more modular or something like that's why I was
interesting too. That was
I
what
was
I
really
would've
surprised
said.
by that. Neither of them were like neither of them left open the possibility, at least that we know if you look at the ports on them and stuff, of being like we can expand this console later.
Isn't it? Well, I mean, you could though, technically speaking, because and maybe
Hard
I'm talking
drives, I think, are
you
the
could.
one
That's all you can.
way
But they don't
there.
have USB ports, do they?
They do have USB.
Oh,
ports.
the controller ports are USB ports, right? So technically, you could add hardware similar to what Apple's doing with their PCs. I'm sure that there's a fair amount of programming, and I'm talking about ass again. But you know what Apple's doing with their Mac Pros is that they're just pure processors, and you add other hardware to it as you need it.
Yeah.
And I always assumed I assumed from the 64 on that was going to be what we were going to deal with from the rest of our lives. Like you have the box, and then you get upgrades to it for.
Yeah.
So the system lasts 10
But
years.
instead, we got a GameCube with a bunch of ports for things that never happened.
That's what I was gonna say. GameCube was a great example. PS2 has some weird ports too.
Yeah.
Vita has a weird port. You know, like there's it's just like we have no idea what the fuck they were for.
Right.
You know. Well, GameCube, some of them were for like the Game Boy Player, and some of them were for
Ethernet adapter
the Ethernet
thing.
adapter and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, we don't. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and act like any of us know the technical ramifications of it. But it would just be cool to be able to emulate, especially on PlayStation, just emulate the PS3. Just emulate the PS3 in some way.
Yeah.
That way, and then you can just go back and play.
See,
those
with
games.
PlayStation, I get that though, right? Because you are literally talking about a different cell or processing architecture.
But I mean, here's the thing. Let's take all of this out of it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not my job to figure it out. Like,
It's true.
I just want this
You're the
shit.
consumer. You
Yeah.
want it. You pay for it.
Like, this
you
thing is,
know.
I know it's not easy. I know whatever. But I'm just saying, it's like, none of that matters to me, man.
Yeah,
Like,
it sucks. It sucks because it seems like Sony has to strike that balance between being the company that everyone wants it to be and being profitable, right? And sometimes that's not always the same. Like when you're dealing with companies like Apple, whose business model is to make the best thing possible for the consumer, that's different, right? That and then you got Microsoft on the other side of that, right? That just kind of goes like, well, let's just give a ton of options that aren't necessarily the best, but they work and people can just pick and choose. Those are two separate. It's very, very hard to run a company like Apple, where you just make one or two products really, really well. And Sony, I think, is seeing that. They're a very, very, very freaking diverse company, and their entertainment side or rather their console side, for all accounts, I guess they're struggling. Are they struggling?
What, on games?
Yeah.
No, the games are they're profitable with
What about their console sales?
the console sales are meteoric. They're huge. PlayStation's fine.
PlayStation's
It's
fine.
most of the rest of the company that's not
Sony.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I get that, right? Like at some point, you have to strike a balance. And you have to prioritize. Not everyone can just do whatever the hell they want to do. And so I realize that we're sitting here on our high throne talking about like, why don't you just fucking do it? And like, there's probably a couple engineers out there that are like, I'm gonna fucking kill these guys when we see them because it's not that simple. And I get it, we're oversimplifying it, but there's a need for it. There is a desire for it, and so it just sucks that they won't fulfill that.
Yeah.
It sucks that they won't be like, let's do what's right, not necessarily what's right for the company.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it's the same thing as people out there that would be like, oh, why don't they just put the Patreon exclusive audio files of the podcasts on an RSS feed? It's like, well, we just can't. And that's like, I know you're right. We should. But
should, yeah, we
can't.
can't.
It
I
just
sympathize.
doesn't work that way,
And at
So
the end of the
it's
day,
like,
it's not the end of the fucking world
and
either.
then multiply the complication by 1,000,000, and that's what you're dealing
Right.
with trying to make the PS4 read the PS3.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. These things would be ideal. Sony found a solution that they thought would work and be scalable amongst their platforms, including on tablets and phones
Yeah.
eventually. So it makes sense. I just think that Microsoft cold clocked them, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I think that's a seminal point in this particular war between these two consoles. Not that Xbox One's going to overtake PS4, because I think it's PS4 is conceivably sold twice as many consoles as Xbox One. But to say that, I thought that was Phil Spencer is doing good hard work over there at Microsoft and is making fucking great decisions to make this to turn this thing around. And can you only imagine the Xbox One's power right now with consumers and on the market if they didn't fuck it up so badly in the beginning? This is how good they're doing. All things considered, PS3 or PS4 and Xbox One in their time on the market as of the beginning of this month have sold 50% more units than PS3 and Xbox 360 at the same time. Mm-hmm. So these consoles are killing. These consoles are fucking killing. And that shouldn't be lost in all of this either.
All right, final topic of the day. This topic is brought to you by the Kinda Funny forums. Go to kindafunny.com/forums. Leave your topic in the Gamescast topic suggestions thread, and we'll get to them. Just like we did to all of these. Like Jose Lewis. When you were kids, what made you pick a certain game on your store, and how does that change when we grow up?
Box
the
art
cover, yeah,
Yeah.
that's all you had.
and Nintendo Power.
It was dope. Like Contra just had the two dudes that looked exactly like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just sitting on there like buffed out, and I was like, I gotta play
Yeah.
this. This is Arnold
Fucking
Schwarzenegger's
in.
game.
I mean, that's really it. And it's funny because I think that's changed so much. Actually, I wonder if it has. I wonder if kids these days walk into GameStop and look at the box art and are just like, I want this. And I'm sure that happens.
Sure.
But I wonder if that is
Does
the
Minecraft
dominant
have box
thing.
art?
No.
No, yeah. So
I mean, well, I guess
Well,
it
it's
does.
not- it does have
technically.
box art.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
the guy
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
axe.
But I mean, even if it's digital, the thumbnail is the box art.
Sure.
Nowadays, but I remember going to Toys R Us and like looking at the box art and flipping it over and looking at the back of the box and reading the description. That really was, and looking at like 3 screenshots, and I'm like,
That's the size of like a
that
nickel.
looks like something I'm into.
Yeah, this looks like
nickel
good
sized
gameplay.
screenshots.
But
Yeah,
magazines, I think, were the biggest thing for me in terms of like which games I'm excited for, looking forward to buying, and then I'm going to make a trip to go buy this game instead of just walking into the store and deciding something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I very rarely walked in my older years. Like, well, not older. By the time really SNES was around, I was just like, well, I was making, I think, more concerted effort to buy games that I was familiar with, even though we were kind of in on by N64 era was pretty clear. Nintendo Power was just a fucking rag for Nintendo propaganda, but it was but I loved Nintendo Power so much. It was a great magazine. But box art used to deceive us sometimes. I remember we bought 2 games in particular when I was a kid: Athena, which is an SNK game, and then Deadly Towers, which is a broader bundle game. Those games fucking suck. And they had
And Phalanx.
Phalanx?
On SNES. It had the most badass box art of all time.
Was that the guy with the guy? Was that
the
it was
old
like
dude
a
with the badge on.
Yeah. I was like, what? Jesus Christ, I forgot about that. So like box art burned us once in a while. I mean, like Deadly Towers is just a notoriously bad game, but it had probably some of the best box art on NES. So, but when you think about NES box art early on from first party games, the box art was terrible, and so like it was just like zoomed in versions of pixel art.
I mean,
it was
like Mario
so
even.
it
Think
was
of Mario
so
1's box art,
bad. It was yeah, it was so
him like in flames. Was
Well, it's him
he have
jumping
the-
like out of the fire, and like
Right.
I think the pose doesn't even make sense in
like,
terms of like gameplay.
It's so weird. Like that, but Kung Fu is another one I really loved. That game, Kung Fu, which is an IRAM game. Those guys are still around, I think.
That game was so hard.
Kung Fu is awesome, and I love how it just cycled constantly. Like you just see how far you get, you can flip the score.
I never got past like the second round. Never. I'd be
Oh,
like,
really?
all right, I'm
They
gonna keep
start
this
throwing daggers and Nick's out.
done.
So I really, the dagger guys are the worst. So there was, box art was instrumental. And then later on, it was more, talking to your friends and reading Nintendo Power or reading EGM or whatever it was at the time that you were reading. And so I think I started making more informed decisions and being turned on to a lot of games that I just didn't know existed. I mean, that's how I got into like really deep role playing games in the Super Nintendo era. Then by PlayStation 1, I was reading the internet.
We just knew what we wanted at that point because of the internet.
And
We
PSN
actively seeked out or sought out what we were looking for. I wonder if commercials, because I mean, video game commercials weren't a thing in the early 90s.
Well, yeah, they were.
Well,
they always
they were.
existed.
yeah, I guess they were. I guess in the 90s. I'm saying before that then.
In the
Like,
80s, they were too.
Really?
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
gaming
they had a
commercials.
lot of commercials.
Like
They were just
on
always
TV?
kids that
Oh,
were
I guess,
like,
the like Zelda commercial and stuff.
yeah,
There were
they,
commercials.
they
What
were
I'm saying is-
totally misrepresented.
But like compared to
misrepresentative of the
nowadays,
games, though.
where there's video game commercials on everything,
Right.
Constantly,
Well, I mean, also games nowadays are a lot more cinematic, right? So you have cutscenes, you have intro scenes, you have games that look 3-dimensional and are a lot more visually stimulating, and they're a lot more varied, right? So, like,
Yeah.
imagine you can't really do a cinematic trailer for Zelda, like the original top-down Zelda, because it's just like. It's not as dynamic, and so you had to have the kid that was like, "I'm going to go save the princess," right? And then get sucked into his fucking TV or whatever. And you're like, "This is terrifying. This is like Poltergeist. What's happening?" And
No, this is interesting. I mean, just thinking back, like, I mean, I know those commercials exist because I've seen them online and
do.
stuff, but like, I don't remember seeing them on TV. Like, the first real commercials I remember seeing were like Pokemon, when all the Pokemon get on the bus,
It depended on what you were watching. I mean, I remember even during like G.I. Joe
and
and
Smash Bros. They're happy
well,
together.
Nintendo. Yeah, I was gonna say Nintendo's commercials. Nintendo
late
and
90s.
PS1 commercials were in the N64 and PS1 eras were great. They were actually really great commercials. If they, the commercials for things were a little more sporadic. You'd see a lot of like box store commercials promoting games and stuff like that as well. Just being like, yeah, blah 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 blah, and you would like see like
yeah.
but
well, that was what I was gonna say too. It was like going to a Toys R Us and seeing the console running and seeing other people playing was all I
Kiosks,
needed.
yeah.
I was like, done. I need this. I don't care what it is. I don't even need to play it. And so I think for
The last game that sold me on was Uncharted.
Yeah.
I remember that. Like, that was when I was like, I need a PS3. This looks fucking
Uncharted was dope.
crazy.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, like when I was a kid, you got burned. You just got burned.
Yeah.
That's just what happened, right? The only sort of respite from that I remember was I had friends that had vast libraries of NES games, and so I could just borrow or go over to their house and play them and be like, all right, this game's really cool. I like this. And then I'll get my mom to buy it for me or something like that. Or you just borrow it from them. But I always had friends that were dicks and were like, don't take that out of here. You're never going to get back. Because I wouldn't give it back. I'm like, that shit's
Your
mine
friends
now, bro.
are dicks. All right, this question's from Manny SJ, also from the Kind of Funny forums. Hey guys, this is a rather broad question, but why do you guys play video games? With more content out there than ever, what is it about gaming that keeps you coming back? I mean, I play games because they're fun. I mean, I feel like that's such a generic answer, but
It's your preferred method of entertainment, man.
yeah.
There's something so much more. I mean, more and more I watch TV, the more and more I realize that all of TV has. It hasn't run its course, but they've iterated on so many different shows, so many different times that there's not a lot of innovation happening on television right now. Specifically, just because the medium is constricted by its own, by its own self. Whereas games, there's so much more innovation happening, and so I can understand that it's much more exciting genre. It's a exciting medium rather. For me, like when I look at it, I still see games as just too big of a time sink for me to really put into. This is why I like movies, because I can watch an hour of a movie and then pick it up the next day and feel like I completed something. Whereas if I play Metal Gear, I know I'm just gonna feel like a failure, like I did with Dying Light, where I'm like, I can't. It's too much. I played 15 hours and I'm no closer to like beating this game than I was when I first started. But I can understand them. It's just they're cool.
Yeah, for me, I think I've always,
Fuck,
from as long as I can remember, I was a fan of just media in general, whether it was audio or video and all this stuff. I love all of it. And games are kind of just all of that together plus an interactive element. And I think it's just like that is what really makes it cool. Is you're a part of it and you get to do stuff. And it's
you have
designed
control
around
over it. It's control. It's designed for you to basically. It's designed to center around you. Without you, it is useless, right? Whereas, and that's why they call it a very active experience. Whereas TV just keeps going.
Yeah, you don't need to be there.
No, they don't
It's
give a
just
shit.
gonna happen anyway.
And most of the time, like they sell ads based on you not being there anyway, and they don't really have an understanding of how you're watching it or why you're watching it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like now they track DVR and stuff like that, but who gives a shit?
Yeah.
TV's dumb.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude. I have dinner after this. I'm just.
Do you need me to text someone?
No.
Should I text someone for you?
No. It's totally.
Can I text someone?
No, please don't.
All right.
So
I want you to notice this though. Have you seen this?
Of course.
that's been my.
ridiculous.
Do you
That's
know
been,
who those are?
That's Mr. Feeney and the kid that sells drugs eventually.
No.
Never sells drugs.
No.
That kid sells drugs. Look at his face. He's the kind of kid.
Eric Matthews does not sell drugs,
That
Nick.
kid eventually got a tattoo on the side of his neck, right? Because he's hip hop, and he's slinging freaking
Eric Matthews.
8
hip-hop.
balls in the valley, guaranteed.
No. He's
Guaranteed.
he's the older brother
Right.
of the
And he's the
the
F up.
main
He's the guy that had
character, Corey.
a couple problems with drug and alcohol. Maybe had a
Oh.
couple arrests.
He gets crazy in the future and becomes dances with squirrels, but that's a whole other.
I rest my point.
Yeah. He's also
He's
eventually voices Batman Beyond.
Yeah, no, I met him I think the other night.
Nice guy.
He's a nice guy.
So why do I play games? I've come to accept that that's what I do.
So the character looks good.
I like him. I like playing video games. It's not something I've even thought about why I play games in 25 years. I like playing games, and I ebb and flow. I remember when I was at IGN, there were months sometimes where I wouldn't play games, like except for at work. Like I just wouldn't play games for months, and then there were times where I was even feeling a little bit drab about it this summer, and then last weekend I just cruised through a couple games. So I just felt like it. Now I'm playing everybody's gone to the Rapture, and I'm playing Mega Man Legacy
How was that?
Collection. Rapture's I'm only a couple hours into it. I really like it.
Yeah?
But I understand that it's not going to be for everyone.
I don't think I'm going to like it.
it's very mysterious and open to interpretation, and doesn't really tell you what to do, which is cool.
I don't like that. I don't like it at all.
So Colin. Justin wants to know, Justin Bennett, why isn't Square wow, I'm like breaking today. This is bad. Why isn't Square bringing back classics like Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, Vagrant Story, Xenogears, A True Front Mission, etc.? The list goes on and on.
Bringing them back, like not the old ones, but why they're
But
not
like
doing
doing
anything
new
with them.
ones.
So Front Mission is a really egregious one to me because of what they're doing to that series, which is so fucking disappointing. They're turning them into like Armored Core games, which is Front Mission, which started on Super Famicom, and we finally got the original one on DS, which is a great game. Is a really deep strategy role-playing game, like deeper than Tactics, Ogre, or Final Fantasy Tactics. You use mechs, and you equip your mechs with a bunch of different shit, and your player also has like statistics. It's a fucking fantastic game, and it's a little. I don't want to say highbrow because I don't think it is at all, but it's just a little hard to understand, I think, for some people, and I think they just were like, well, we can make it very Western, and so they ruined that series. Xenogears, I don't know. I mean, Xenogears is an interesting game that a lot of people like, but Xenogears was clearly rushed at the end, and I'm not so sure what the legacy of that game is internally at Square, if they have any interest in bringing that game back.
So, okay.
Secret of Mana Secret of Mana did come back. I mean, there was another Secret of Mana game, I think. Wasn't it on PS2?
Secret of Mana
Or PS1?
was there?
PS1? Wasn't there?
Was that Secret of Evermore?
No, Secret of Evermore is an SNES game that was an Enix game that Square now owns. And Secret of Evermore is a great game too. But I feel like Mana did come back. Legend of Mana. That series did come back. So I don't know.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
So why do they not do these things? I think they have to balance it. They have their tentpole series, Eastern series. They have Final Fantasy and they have Dragon Quest, and they're going to continue to focus on those. Now they're also doing Star Ocean. So that's like kind of an A tier, not a triple A tier, but an A tier thing. I think that they're kind of throwing, because I'd love to see them bring back Brave Fencer Musashi. I'd love to see them bring back the Bouncer and stuff like that. But they're just not going. They're not going. I like the Bouncer, and I don't think that they're worried about their legacy so much because they can sell these old games. They want to focus on the things that are going to sell their business.
So Xenogears, right? This is a series I never really got into.
I'm looking up Xenogears right now. That's what I'm doing, Kevin. So shut up.
I don't understand this. So there's Xenogears, and then there was Xenosaga,
right?
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
On PS2,
right.
Are those connected?
I don't know because I didn't play them. I bought Xenosaga, which had some German name. I don't remember. It was like some ridiculous name.
Oh yeah.
And I played it and I bought it. So I bought it when I was in college. I think I was a freshman in college, and I put it in, and it was like an hour later, and like I still couldn't play it. I'm like, I'm out. And
Cosmos, whatever.
Yeah, I like hit the. I put it back in the box and brought it back to the store. So that was my experience with it. I don't know. I don't know that they're necessarily connected, because then there's like, not that it comes from the same company, but there's a lot of Xeno.
Well,
games.
Xenoblade, the Chronicles.
Which they're not. They're not.
Xenogears the same now?
No, they're not. They're not related. Xeno is just.
What does Xeno mean?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing you have to look up.
I'm gonna look
that
it up right
Xenogears
now.
logo. I'll never forget getting Xenogears in '98. Man, I got it for Christmas. It was
Define
special.
Xeno.
Interesting game.
Xeno define. I'm proud of myself that I knew it was spelled with an X.
Final question of the day from James Tam. Why has Nintendo dropped the ball so hard on Virtual Console? Also, why no Super Nintendo games for Virtual Console on the 3DS? I feel like we've talked about this a lot.
It's not
but
up to them.
It all comes down to licensing stuff and weird things like that. And besides that, I think they're just, in the last topic we were talking about with Sony making their decisions with PlayStation Now and all that, why is there not Super Nintendo games on the 3DS? I don't know. I really don't know. None of that makes sense.
They might not be able to do it. I don't know. I mean, the 3DS can run Super Nintendo games. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that there's probably more that meets the eye. Again, when we were talking about exactly the last thing where it's like there might be an engineering issue. That's my presumption, or my assumption. It's not a presumption. I really feel like people are hard on Nintendo. I don't feel like there are many Nintendo published games that are not on Virtual Console of any.
But here's the thing: when you bring the 3DS into it, that's when it's just like, what the hell? They're just not there.
Right, but again, I think that there's just reasons for this that we don't quite understand. Because when you look at it in its base form in Virtual Console on Wii, not Wii U, just the Wii, it's awesome. Like, the Virtual Console is great. I mean, that was the best thing about the Wii. It's the best thing about the Wii U.
Years for it to be great.
But
now looking back, it is.
I guess so. I mean, I feel like Nintendo rolled a lot of their stuff onto the console pretty quickly. I remember when I first started at IGN, even in 2007, that they were, they had an announcement every week where they were just going and releasing 3, 4, 5 games a week, and not only for first party games, but for third party games as well. But they run into a wall, I think, eventually where they have to kind of go into their old stock. And I think something like Earthbound not being released for a while was weird. And there are examples like that. But I think a lot of it now comes down to third parties and third party cooperation. And they might look at these games and be like, you're selling it for $5. We might have a plan for Contra in the future. We might have a plan for Blades of Steel. We might have, we can make more money later if we release these games now. And then we try to release these games again later. Do we pull these games down? Do we look like assholes if we're charging more on this platform? There's a lot of semantics that I think a lot of people don't look into. So, I'm surprised that we actually got the amount of games that we did, because if I was Konami and I was releasing these Castlevania games, for instance, I would have been like, we'll put them all on a disc and sell them for $60. We're not putting them on Virtual Console.
Yeah.
And they just released them piecemeal and made less money. So you can almost look at it from the other point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just shocked that Super Mario World is not on 3DS.
They might have a plan to roll those Super Nintendo games out and make a big event out of it. But there must be. I mean, the only Virtual Console games I played are NES games, because I didn't even realize that there's nothing else on there. But it could be a problem of emulation. It could be a problem of they want to make a splash. They want to distract.
It can't be the emulation thing. I mean, they got Genesis stuff on there. They got like all this other shit. And
there are Genesis games on the 3DS?
Yes.
Well, I mean, they're different consoles. Again,
no, I know, but I mean, it's just like, at that point, when you're dealing with those old things, like, well, I know the emulation is possible, because if you just homebrew stuff, you can make the.
Oh, I'm sure the emulation is possible. I'm not saying the 3DS cannot handle Super Nintendo games. The 3DS should be able to handle N64 games too, and it does. I mean, it handles Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time. natively on cartridge or
Gotcha.
on card. But there must be a thing where like we don't want to dedicate the resources to this, or we have a plan for this. We're going to roll them out. We're being patient and waiting for other games. I mean, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Nintendo seems weird and they make a lot of stupid decisions, but they're also very calculated. So I don't think this is something like, oh, we forgot.
Yeah.
I think there's probably
Like shit, good point. Totally forgot about that. It's a
Yeah.
little post-it note on someone's desk. Like
Put Mario World on
put
3DS.
Mario World on 3DS. It's like motherfucker.
Oh, man. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been the first ever episode 33 of the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Until next week, we'll be right here. We're just going to wait here. We're not going to do anything. But you guys should go to the Kind of Funny forums, post some topics, have discussions. Let us know about your responses to all these different topics. What do you want to see in the firmware for the Xbox One or the PS4? And what else is there? What do we talk about? What games are you most excited about? That's the one I want to know the most about. And are you excited about playing Volume? Shout out Mike Bithell. I love everybody.
What up,
Except for
MB?
fucking Kevin. Don't love you.
Kevin, how's that scone?
I'm going.
Bye.